Some of the most damaging relationships are the hardest ones to explain, and they don't have to look extreme in order to be deeply harmful. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism Podcast, where we make sense of what never quite made sense. If you've been listening for a while, you may already understand what's happening in your relationship. You can see the patterns, you can name the behaviors, but maybe you still feel stuck in the same cycle. This is where coaching comes in. It's not about learning more, it's about having the support to finally apply what you already know and begin moving forward. You need a coach. If you're ready for that next step, I invite you to join me in my coaching program. You can learn more about it at covertnarcissism.com. Have you ever felt obligated to care for an aging parent who spent your entire childhood criticizing, devaluing, or outright abusing you? Today, we're talking about the guilt, the fear, and the family roles that keep you trapped in that obligation, and how to finally set boundaries around it. Welcome back to the show. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Lisa Stinson, a clinical psychologist and author of The Obligation Myth: Rethinking What You Owe Your Difficult Aging Parent. While so much of what we talk about here centers on the covert narcissistic spouse, today we are widening the lens to the whole family system. Your parents, your siblings, the roles that were assigned to you as a kid and that you're probably still playing out today. In this episode, you are going to learn about the different roles that toxic family systems create: the scapegoat, the golden child, the invisible child, and the enmeshed child, and how each one carries its own wounds, its own triggers, and its own path to setting a boundary. We'll talk about why I owe them everything or I owe them nothing is not actually the choice that's in front of you, and what the much wider middle ground can look like. We will dig into fear, obligation, and guilt, that fog that we talk about so much, and how a narcissistic parent uses every one of those levers differently depending on which role you were handed growing up. If you've ever found yourself 5 years old again the second you walk into your parents' house, this episode is for you. Now let's get into it. So today I am thrilled to welcome Dr. Lisa Stinson to the program. And Lisa, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks for having me.
So, Lisa, we talk a lot on my podcast about, or I talk a lot on the podcast about a covert narcissistic spouse. But today we're going to step outside of that and more looking at the family unit. So we're looking more at our parents, our siblings, our grandparents, and we're going to dive into this. Your work that you do is not necessarily focused on the marriage and the relationship. It's more with the extended family. Is that true?
Yes, yes. I mean, certainly the difficult covert narcissist spouse as well, but also I look at the family system as a whole.
Right. So you've done some work specifically for adult children handling difficult parents. So we're looking at toxic and narcissistic parents. So maybe let's just start there. Tell us a little bit about the work that you've done.
Okay. So I recently wrote a book actually on the obligation myth. And the obligation myth really looks at what society, what your family in general, your church, your community, your coworkers, your friends think that you owe a difficult aging parent. And so there's sort of this idea that we have an obligation to take on caregiving for that person, regardless of what that relationship has been like. So the idea, and just kind of as a couple of examples, let's say you have a mother who is that covert narcissist and they have been devaluing and critical. They're almost cruel for sport,
Hmm.
right? And they attack you, what you're wearing, the dinner you cooked, your choice of spouse, your kids'
Everything.
behavior, everything,
Everything. Yes.
everything. And they've done this for as long as you can remember. So you remember this sort of thing happening when you were 5 years old. Now you're 55 and it's still happening. What do you owe that difficult aging parent in that situation? What are you really obligated to? Because we kind of have this idea that, well, you take care of your aging parent is what you do. It's what
Mhm.
families do. It's what the culture dictates that you do. But not everybody had that, safe, loving experience in their family.
Right.
And so what are you obligated to then? And so really it kind of speaks to almost a debt narrative,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, um, because they paid for your football camp, or they went to your piano recital, or paid for your college, that now you have an obligation to provide a level of caregiving.
Yeah. And add to that, a lot of people who are in that situation also are compassionate people and a care because okay, this is my mom that we're talking about here. And so you feel that not only the obligation from society, you feel it from inside you too.
Oh, absolutely. Depending on, of course, so many factors, kind of what that level of sense of guilt and responsibility might look like. It's going to be different for a myriad of reasons, all of which we're going to talk about today.
Right. Right. So what do you tell this person or how do you kind of start this conversation? You've got a 55, 60-year-old person who's experienced this all of their lives with their mother or their father. And now this parent is aging and maybe, they're the only child who's willing to step up and care for. Maybe the others have abandoned. Maybe the others are laying the responsibility on that child of that adult child of, you've got to go do this. What do you tell them? How do you start this?
Well, the first thing I want to know um, about that difficult, dysfunctional family system is, what was your role in that family? Even before that, who is it that needs care? So, is it the narcissistic, really toxic, critical, and cruel parent? Is it the enabling parent who maybe
Mm,
didn't abuse you outright, but allowed it to happen, and so, was abusive by extension, by failing to protect you in a
right.
sense.
Right.
So you have that piece of it. But then, again, the situation is going to be different, one, depending on the level of abuse, of course. And then what was your role in the toxic, dysfunctional family system? So, it's going to be different for the family scapegoat, for example, compared to that of the golden child,
Okay.
and what they feel they owe. Different for the invisible child, different for the child who was enmeshed. Um,
Yeah.
we don't always think, oh, well, is that abuse? We don't always think about that person, but it very much is when they were never allowed to sort of have their own identity.
Right.
So, and that's a very special caregiving situation in and of itself. Um, so we have those factors in play. And then we break that down even farther, based on kind of our internal dialogue, because we have the hopeful child who's, if I give enough and sacrifice enough and do enough, maybe I'll finally get the love that I always wanted from my parent.
Mhm.
Or the angry protector saying, you know what, I don't owe these people anything based on how they treated me. I'm walking away from the situation. So you've got the role in the family, and then you've got this internal dialogue as well, with all these different variables. Combine that with the type of abuse. Is that abuse ongoing? Because the mother who was critical to you growing up um, is probably still critical, right? But the father who used to beat you when you were young, well, now you're an adult, he can't beat you anymore.
Mhm.
So the nature of that, the dynamic has changed a bit. You're able to defend yourself.
Right.
There are lots of different variables in play, and at the end of the day, it's not a binary sort of decision. You know, where the options are complete no contact, I have nothing to do with this person, or full spectrum of care. I'm moving them into the guest room. I'm going to be their full time caregiver. There's actually a whole lot of options in between that. But it's not how we always think of the situation,
Right.
right? It's like either I do it or I don't do it.
Right.
When the reality is a lot different than that.
Okay. No, that's a very fair point, and I wanna dive into that here in just a minute, but let's talk through those different roles that are played, just maybe real quick, of a snapshot of what each of those roles looks like.
Okay. So let's talk about the family scapegoat because they're the ones who really get piled on, right?
Right.
Um, so with the family scapegoat, we know just from research in dysfunctional family systems, research in narcissism, that the scapegoat is the one that carries the family shadow, right? All of the projected shame, all the anger, all the inadequacy, the scapegoat carries all of that. They get labeled as the problem child pretty early on. So it's bad enough when you think about the 50-year-old woman who's still stuck in that role of the family scapegoat. Imagine what that's like really for the 5-year-old that's carrying that role that is devalued and criticized. And so for the family scapegoat, there's this intense internal conflict. Why should I sacrifice my life, myself, for the person who made me feel worthless?
Mhm.
Right. Or in the case of the enabling parent, why should I sacrifice myself for the person who failed to protect me
Right.
from this person? Right. Even though the scapegoat may be doing everything to try to prove their worth, right? That I'm not the bad person that my mother always said I was. I'm not the selfish person that my father always said I was, right? So I'm going to, give up my weekend. I'm going to cancel my meetings so I can take mom to her doctor's appointment, right? Doing, doing, doing. The old dynamic really doesn't change in the sense that whatever you do, it's still not going to be good enough, right?
Mm.
So you're turning yourself inside out, providing more and more care. Nothing is ever going to be good enough. The goalposts keep getting moved, right?
Right.
So it's kind of that no win situation. And so the parent will continue to project all their frustrations, all of their shame, all of their blame, all of their anger onto the scapegoat, regardless of the quality of the caregiving that's being provided, right?
Right.
Um, and so then if the scapegoat sets any type of boundary, I absolutely cannot be there on Thursday to take you to your appointment. Well, then that's proof, right? That's proof that you're bad, that you're worthless, that you are as selfish as the parents always told you that you were,
Right.
right?
Right, and those are feelings that don't go away easily. These are
Oh, absolutely
feelings that
not.
stay deep inside you.
Absolutely. And that's the thing about when your parent ages, and I'm using the word aging, but really, so this could be for when somebody in your audience, they might be 25 years old, their parent is 50, but maybe there's some element of caregiving there as well.
Mhm.
But when there's kind of this need for care in any capacity, regardless of what kind of work you've done, you've read all the books and you've done therapy and you've journaled and you've read all the books, you're doing all the things, you get dragged right back into those old family roles, right?
Right,
And it's not just the parents, all the kids step back into the role that they grew up in, and you're working those dynamics as well.
yeah, and the dynamics seem to never go away.
And they
Right,
don't.
and in a parent-child dynamic, when you are a child and the narcissistic parent, of course, they're the parent and they're in charge and you've got the control or the negligence and all of that happening. But then as they age and you flip, it's like a role reversal where now they want you to parent them. They want you to the caregiving is what I'm talking about here specifically. "Oh,
Right.
I can't do this," or "I need help with that." But yet they were the ones who, were abusive to you in childhood. but they keep flipping this dynamic. What I see keeps flipping back and forth. I'm the parent, you're the child until, oh no, now I need you to take care of this. Well, now I'm the child, you're the parent. And it just flips. It never hits adult healthy.
You are 100% on point with that. Absolutely.
Mhm.
And yes, so what are you walking into today? Am I going to be the child that's helping their aging parent, or am I talked down to and I feel this big again?
Mhm.
And I'm 5 years old again,
Right.
you know.
So
Right.
what other dynamics, I'm sorry, what other roles are played here? So we've got the scapegoat. Let's talk about the golden child.
Oh, let's talk about the golden child. So the golden child, of course, right, they sort of embody that family's idealized persona, right? They they are the positive projection of that narcissistic parent. So, but the love, the praise is conditional a lot of the time based on that performance. So there's kind of this false self that's kind of built on being built up as that golden child, right?
Mhm.
Kind of that family representative of how okay we are as a family overall.
Mhm. The image
And
protector.
the image protector, exactly.
Mhm.
And so, what you'll see with the golden child and kind of one of their struggles in the caregiving situation is that the parent will leverage that special status in order to manipulate that golden child. And so you'll find here that inheritance promises kind of get weaponized, and they're going to be weaponized with all the kids, but particularly with the golden childs because they've probably been promised more already, right?
Mhm.
Because they do have that special status in the family, and so again you have that weaponization. Well, I'll change the will if you don't dot dot dot
Mhm.
um, fill in the blank. And so there's kind of this need then to continue to perform. And the siblings, if you've got the invisible child, the scapegoat as your siblings, well, they're willing to abdicate this. It's like, you know what? You're the perfect one. You're getting 80% of the estate after they're gone. You handle it.
Right.
And so the golden child can kind of get piled on, yeah, in that regard.
Right.
And so let's talk invisible child.
Okay.
So how did the invisible child kind of get through life, survive growing up in this dysfunctional family system? They were undemanding, they went unnoticed, they blended into the woodwork, right? They can't hurt me if they can't see me.
Okay.
And, and sometimes you'll see the scapegoat kind of roll into this invisible child role almost deliberately where I'm piled on, I'm piled on all the time. So I'm just not going to be at home. I'm going to be hiding in my room. I'm going to avoid the rest of the family because I know that uh, I'm going to be attacked. I'm going to be devalued, criticized if I show my face. So I'm just going to um, I'll eat my dinner and then I'll disappear for the rest of the night.
So they're just trying to stay off the radar.
Staying off the radar,
Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
So in the caregiving situation, the invisible child will um they're kind of they'll absorb that burden of caregiving believing that their needs don't matter, and that's oftentimes what their siblings are counting on. You take it on, you don't mind, it's okay. She didn't say anything, so she must be okay with it, right?
Yeah. You've already made all the sacrifices, so why not make a few more?
Exactly. And so, because of this, whether it's the siblings, whether it's the parents themselves, the contributions of the invisible child really do kind of get overlooked. No one, so there's no gratitude for what they're contributing, and also they're oftentimes not part of the conversation. So decisions will be made about, maybe a care facility, or who's going to manage doctor's appointments, or who's going to handle helping them financially, for example. The invisible child may not even be part of those conversations, yet they're still expected to step up and take on a large degree of that burden,
To fulfill
right?
their duties.
To fulfill the duty.
Right.
And because they're used to being invisible, they're not asking for help, right?
Okay.
They do it on they do it on their own, and so there's a very high risk for burnout, for self neglect, because these invisible children, they probably have maybe teenagers at home, or they've got kids in college. They might be raising grandchildren.
Mhm.
Um, they might be helping care for in laws.
Right.
And they've got a full-time job, they have a spouse, they have their own homes that they're managing, and nobody thinks, well, well, of course they can take this on too, and they're counting on the invisible child not to say anything.
Okay. So in that situation, I'm sitting here picturing, somebody in their 50s, maybe mid 50s. You're just maybe hitting empty nest or, getting your kids into college. Maybe you're dealing with, your children and relationships that they're having and grandchildren coming in, like all of this transition of life right then.
Right,
And if you're in my audience, a lot of my audience has been navigating a covert narcissistic marriage. And so you
right.
have that dynamic too. And you might finally, for the first time in your life, actually be getting on your feet and kind of starting to heal from everything you've been through. Maybe you're doing therapy, you're working through the dynamics of your own childhood trauma, and you're coming to grips with all of this, and wham, now we have an aging parent.
You thought you were gonna finally be able to take a breath,
Mhm.
and
And you
now
can't.
there's someone making demands on you, and the expectation is that you're there for them regardless of what you might have on your plate.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I wanna bring up just one more person, one more child, in the mix. That enmeshed child,
Oh, yes.
because
Yes.
they have their own can of worms to deal with as well. So with that enmeshed child, when it comes to that toxic narcissistic parent, they were the parent's, emotional spouse, right? They
Mhm.
were the confidant. They were parentified, and as such, really lost any sense of kind of a separate self. So this is the child who, if the child support was late, they heard about it,
Mhm.
right? They provided that emotional sense of support for that difficult parent when the spouse didn't step in.
Okay.
And so really caregiving becomes this extension of lifelong parentification, right?
Yeah.
It is your job to sacrifice yourself to be there for that parent, because the parent is always gonna be number 1,
Yeah.
right?
Which sounds like that caregiving actually started way earlier.
Right, absolutely, elementary school.
Right.
And you'll see this with, in situations where there's substance abuse in the home, where that child was responsible for maybe taking care of that parent who was an alcoholic or an addict.
Mhm.
Um, so with let's say, but if that's not the case, from the outside, you know, other people looking in, oh gosh, you have such a great relationship with your mom. It looks so loving. You guys are so close. This is wonderful. Why on earth wouldn't you take care of your aging mother? And because they don't see the cost that
Mhm.
went along with, what they're seeing is kind of this loving relationship was really engulfment by
Yeah.
that narcissistic parent.
And the
And
the
so
cost being your own loss of identity, that you weren't able to form your own.
right.
Yeah.
And so the caregiving, situation is further erosion of that, right? Continuing to never really develop your own sense of self.
Mhm.
And the thought of setting any kind of boundary, um, is intensely, um, brings up intense feelings of guilt. And then again, of course, the community, the family, the church, they all, oh gosh, you have such a wonderful relationship with your parent. Why on earth wouldn't you do it?
Right.
And so then let's pile on more guilt. So that's kind of the unique situation for that enmeshed child.
Okay. It is one that, doesn't get talked about often enough, but very much so a part of this whole toxic dynamic. So then how do we start setting boundaries? Let's say we are in that situation where maybe we you identify as one of these, roles. And I guess let me ask, you mentioned the scapegoat can become the invisible child. Do you find that these roles can shift around as somebody's going from 0 to 55 in age?
I think they can. I mean, if you were the invisible child growing up, but then, in your 30s, you start setting those boundaries with that difficult parent, you're gonna become a scapegoat pretty quickly.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, just a little personal disclosure. So I was a family scapegoat. My sister was an invisible child. When I graduated and left home at 17, I I got as far away from that dysfunctional family system as possible. Somebody had to become the new scapegoat, and that fell on my sister. So, uh, you know, those roles can absolutely change depending on kind of what's going on, what's going on in the family as situations change. Divorces, remarriages, someone passes away. Uh,
The roles move
those
around.
roles can absolutely shift around.
Mhm.
The golden child decides not to take on the family business and decides to go and do his own thing. Well, he's no longer the golden child anymore,
Mhm.
right? He's now ungrateful as and might slip then into the role of scapegoat.
Right. Well, narcissistic individuals, what I find, and maybe you find this as well, they always have to have a scapegoat. And so there's always a scapegoat. And if one person is no longer the scapegoat for whatever reason, they've, gone completely no contact, well, they can still be the scapegoat, but that's a little bit then more by distance. But they need a hands-on scapegoat. They need somebody in their world to blame everything on.
Absolutely,
Mm.
absolutely. And so and for that, say, that golden child, for example, who, you know, life is pretty good for me in general, might suddenly find themselves as the scapegoat if that scapegoat leaves home and they're no longer available to absorb that cruelty
Mhm.
and that shame.
Do you find that the golden child and the scapegoat and their relationship with each other, does it create a complication there? And is it hard for the golden child to understand when the scapegoat pulls away?
I would say it depends. I've seen some instances where uh, an adult who had grown up as the golden child, they're in my office and really feeling just sadness and for that sibling of theirs that grew up, horribly abused by comparison, and knowing how good they might have had it, there is a sense of guilt and sadness with that. On the other hand, oftentimes the golden child will get pulled in as one of the flying monkeys, will align with that narcissistic parent against the scapegoat. And so, and particularly in a case of elder care, if it's coming down to who's going to inherit the estate, aligning with the narcissistic parent and piling onto the scapegoat. And why wouldn't they? They've heard all their lives about how selfish and worthless the scapegoat is.
Mhm.
And if they're benefiting from aligning with the scapegoat, they'll do so as one of the
Aligning
flying
with the
monkeys.
narcissistic parent. Yeah.
Yes, as one of their flying monkeys.
Yeah. No, that makes
So
complete sense.
it really kind of depends, you know.
Right. Okay. How do you set boundaries in this environment? Like that feels to me like just an impossible situation. You've got this sense of obligation, you've got all the different roles being played, and now you have an aging parent. What in the world
Right.
do you do?
So first of all, I think that you have to recognize that the role that you were assigned has nothing to do with who you actually are. They were crafted to keep a broken system functioning. And that is important because that's going to factor in with the kind of what triggers you
Mhm.
and setting those boundaries, right? So For the let's take the scapegoat, for example. The scapegoat is all about projecting the shame, right? You're selfish, you're worthless, chronically growing up feeling like you're not good enough. And that you, regardless of what you'll do, you'll never be good enough.
Mhm.
Taking that into your adult relationships, friendships, spouse, um, nothing I do is good enough. So, what's going to be triggering for that scapegoat is that sense of shame and worthlessness.
Right.
And the narcissistic parent is going to hone in on that at every opportunity, right?
Mhm.
They know what they're doing.
Mhm.
We know they know what they're doing
They're gonna stick
uh,
that finger on that wound every time.
every time. And so recognizing what that child wound is for you is going to be really important. Where, okay, this is this is my narcissistic parents' shame, not mine, has nothing to do with me. I don't have to react to this.
Mhm.
Will help that scapegoated child set that boundary.
Okay. I
That
don't
makes
have to
sense.
react to it, and I don't have to carry it. I don't have to own
Right.
it.
Because it's not mine.
Right.
At the end of the day, this was a role that was assigned to me, has nothing to do with who I am. I know this is their stuff. This is not my stuff. It stings.
Mhm.
It sucks, but I don't have to absorb it
Okay.
as mom. And so, yep, you're right, mom. I am selfish, but I cannot miss Thursday's meeting to take you to your doctor's appointment. I will help you arrange an Uber.
Yeah. So that's
Right.
the in between where you can, like you said earlier, it's not all or nothing on the care. I either do everything for them or I do nothing. That's a little piece of that in between.
Exactly. Exactly. So for let's take that invisible child. And so the invisible child, let's say it's not what you deliberately chose. Let's say you were the scapegoat. It's like, you know what, I'm gonna choose to hide out and be invisible. Let's say that the invisibility was something that was put upon you,
Mhm.
right? It was assigned to you growing up. And so that is the sense of I don't matter. I barely exist. Nobody notices, nobody cares, I have to figure this out on my own because I can't count on anyone to be there for me,
Right.
right? And so, what's going to be triggering for that invisible child? So, being not being part of the conversation, being taken for granted, feeling, not really feeling a sense of gratitude from anyone in the family, even though they might be taking care of the lion's share
Mhm.
of the caregiving for that aging parent. So let's say that's the trigger, being taken advantage of,
Mhm. Being taken for granted.
taken for granted.
Mhm.
So now they try to set that boundary. Well, I can't believe you're being so selfish. I can't believe I can't believe you would do this to me after everything I've done for you.
So now it's the victim role. That's the
Now,
victim from the toxic parent.
right, that poor invisible child now is kind of stuck with that. All right, now I'm feeling guilty. I'm feeling shame. I need to provide that. I need to cancel whatever it is that I have going on so that I can um, be there for that parent.
Mhm.
So that's going to be what the invisible child needs to recognize. Okay, I'm feeling taken for granted, put upon. I'm feeling really overwhelmed. This has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with their projection of their own stuff. No, I cannot help you out. I cannot give up my weekend, to drive the 6 hours to be here for you.
Right.
But I will help you, in a couple of months when I have a scheduled trip planned,
Okay.
right?
So the
So
boundaries I'm hearing are a lot of what we take on internally. The boundary is what I will absorb or not absorb, what I will blame at myself or shame myself for. It's a lot to do with our self talk and our self interaction.
absolutely. At the end of it, being able to set that boundary and stick to it is really going to be dependent, kind of wound dependent.
Mhm.
What was the wound for you? Recognizing what wound is being triggered, right?
Okay.
What's being poked at,
Right.
to be able to kind of take a breath, take that step back, and say, no, I'm going to do this for myself.
Okay. So the boundaries don't fix the relationship. The boundaries aren't gonna change the toxic parent. I'm just kind of gonna put that
Oh,
out there.
God, no.
Right.
No.
Right. That's not the purpose here.
No, the boundary is 100% for you. And what's that saying? The people who aren't gonna like your boundaries are the ones who are benefiting from you not having any, right?
Absolutely.
And so, they are not gonna be happy about it. And so you can anticipate that. They're going to rage against it.
Yeah. They're gonna rage or they're gonna become I always call it the rage or the collapse. They're gonna rage and it's gonna be you're gonna get the anger and the blame and the yelling or whatever, or they're just gonna get the collapse of the victim mode of I can't believe after everything I've done for you and I'll just sit here and be alone all the time, like playing on the sympathies.
Right, right.
Mhm.
That you are responsible for my loneliness.
Mhm. And it's
Yeah,
your fault that I'm
and
gonna
it's
be
your
here and be so lonely. Okay.
and if you have that parent who, um, is a bit more fragile, where that collapse means, threats of suicide, uh, going into the psychiatric inpatient ward, which we've also seen.
Mhm.
Um, that's something to consider then as well when you're setting those boundaries.
Right.
Where okay, if you well, you're threatening suicide, in this collapse, not to minimize that, but managing that might look a little differently as part of that boundary setting and needs to be, part of the plan.
Right. Right. So I think what you're speaking to is lay out what the wounds were, what are the triggers, get your awareness really high on that regard as part of your own healing and knowing then maybe what to expect from this parent, and just expect how many times did they have to show you how they're going to behave before you just expect it. Okay? Quit
Right.
quit expecting that this time they're going to get it. This time they're going to be sympathetic. This time no, let your track record give you your expectations and
Exactly.
and then make a plan. Like make a way to navigate that.
Right. And the thing is, it's not something, if you try to kind of set that boundary without that plan in the moment, it's not going to, you'll
Mhm.
find yourself backing down almost immediately,
Mhm.
or within a day or two.
And falling back into the old roles.
Right back into the old role. Figuring out what that boundary is gonna look like, and doing the work for that, is actually in my appendix,
Okay.
of um, so that you have that plan going in, set, rehearsed, practice. I know what my triggers are going to be. I know what
Mhm.
the wound is when she says this. I know what the wound is when she says this, and I can prepare myself for that knowing that it has nothing to do with me. This is the boundary. This is what I'm willing to do.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
One last one to address before we sign off here would be the boundaries for the golden child.
for the golden child, that one can be a bit trickier. So they kind of have there's this idea because they are, kind of the special one. They're expected to manage everything almost flawlessly in a lot of ways. And because, not always, but because, inheritance is um, part of the equation, or maybe it's just simply being seen as, that really, the better of the
The one
children
put together. So it's the
to,
image. Mhm.
to the extended family,
Mhm.
even to the community, to their church, to, the other parent. There is that need there. How about the collapse of that perfect image?
Uh,
What if somebody actually sees the flaws? If I set this boundary, what will that look like to other people? And so that's going to be then, um, the wound that gets attached to that boundary,
mhm.
right? So if I don't handle this situation perfectly, maybe it doesn't matter what other people are going to think about that, what the rest of the family is going to think about that.
Okay. So the sense of obligation for them comes as staying on that pedestal,
Right.
and the fear being that they're going to have a falling from their position.
Right.
Okay. I mean, it's fog is something we talk about a lot in the work that I do is fear, obligation, and guilt. And we've kind of hit on all of that,
Yeah.
where the sense of obligation is going to come, for several of these different roles that are being played. So obligation is one that landed a lot, and thus your book being called The Obligation Myth. I can see how that might be across the board. Guilt
Right.
is going to be laid on those kids, the adult children who played more of the invisible child or the scapegoat. You're now that parent is poking at that sense of guilt. Fear, I think, is landing more with the golden child role.
For the scapegoat, for example, well, everybody has already heard about all of your flaws, real or
Difference does it
imagined.
make? Right,
So there's no fear of being seen. The invisible child would love to be seen. You're right. That has more to do with the golden child being seen as imperfect.
right. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time here. This is just fascinating in trying to help people to navigate this role with an aging toxic parent. If people want to know more about the work that you do, where can they find you?
So they can find me on my Substack.
Okay.
So if they go to Lisa D. Stinson, PhD on Substack, they will find me there. And I do long form articles every week as well as just smaller um, smaller bits
Hmm.
throughout the course of the week. And really, it's not just on the caregiving dynamic for the aging parent. A lot has to do with the spouse, difficult siblings. This week's long form article was about, why you got picked by the workplace bully.
Okay.
So it's kind of about that covert, that experience with that covert narcissist in your life
Right.
across the board.
In the workplace. Well, across the
And
board, yes. I mean, any of the concepts we talk about can apply to any of these relationships.
right.
You can become a scapegoat in a work environment, just
Oh,
like you can be a
100%.
golden child in a work environment.
And the workplace bully picks the golden child, the scapegoat, the invisible child for different reasons
Mhm.
in the workplace.
Mhm.
But that's another podcast.
Yes. Yes, for sure. So and, briefly let us know about your book.
Yes, so it's called The Obligation Myth. Rethinking what you owe your difficult aging parent, and right now I'm set up with Amazon KDP Select, so it's only available on Amazon right now, but that will change in August, at which point you'll be able to find it everywhere. But right now, you can find it on Amazon.
Okay. And the links will be in the show notes to help people to be able to find you on the Substack. So I will include that, in the show notes here, and as well as the title of your book. And then they can go look it up on Amazon right now. Maybe we can change that when it comes out on other things, and we can get the link then on
Right.
in other ways. So thank you so much, Lisa, for joining us and for spending your time here.
Oh well, thank you for having me.
Lisa, thank you so much for this conversation and for putting language to something that so many people carry quietly for decades. The idea that the role you were assigned has nothing to do with who you actually are. I think that is going to stay with a lot of listeners. If you want to go deeper on this, Dr. Stinson's book, The Obligation Myth Rethinking What You Owe Your Difficult Aging Parent, is available now on Amazon, and you can find her ongoing writing on Substack at Lisa D. Stinson, PhD. I'll have both of those links in the show notes. Thank you so much, as always, for listening. I'll see you next time, and I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. If you've been listening for a while, you may already understand what's happening in your relationship. You can see the patterns, you can name the behaviors, but maybe you still feel stuck in the same cycle. This is where coaching comes in. It's not about learning more, it's about having the support to finally apply what you already know and begin to move forward. If you're ready for that next step, I invite you to join me in my coaching program. You can learn more about it at covertnarcissism.com. Your story matters, and you deserve to be heard without judgment. Check out my coaching services at my website, again, covertnarcissism.com. And don't forget to subscribe, to thumbs up, to follow, to like this podcast so that you can get more empowering episodes like this one, and to help us continue spreading the word so that our community can continue to grow. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson, Covert Narcissism Podcast, and CNG Life Coaching is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes and not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. Renee shares stories from her personal experience as well as from those she has talked with for several years. Her material does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support any allegation or support a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of this material and information provided.